evening, everyone, and welcome to another weekend wrap show. I'm Phoenix, fresh off the dinner table, thinking it was 6:30 and it was 5 to 7. And joining me as usual, I have Macca and Nikki. How you going, guys?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Going very well.
Very good. And an interesting round of football. Not too many surprises in the end, but a couple of games probably closer than we expected. And the Crows having a pretty good win up north.
Yeah,
Acceptable.
I'd say a tradesman-like job. Not totally 100% perfect, but not many games are. But I'd say a tradesman-like effort.
Oh, I'm a little bit more upbeat.
Yeah, I think you're selling our team a bit short considering the conditions.
Anyway, we will delve into your thinking, Macca, on that.
Uh-huh.
And in the meantime, let's...
And are we both going to tell him he's wrong?
Oh, maybe. He might have some good points.
Maybe.
You never...
Nikki,
so sceptical, mate.
open your bloody mind for a change, Nikki.
My mind's always open. It's why it's so clean.
All right. And the other thing, too, is I'm setting the three of us a challenge to go 60 minutes tonight instead of 90 minutes.
Oh.
All right.
How boring.
It's supposed to be a 60-minute podcast, so let's see how... I'm sure we won't make it, but, you know, it's dare to dream.
That's
Anyway,
for professionals to attempt.
Yeah, I know. That ship sailed a long time ago. Friday night, the Bombers having a pretty convincing win over a disappointing St Kilda. Essendon 17-16, 118 to St Kilda 7-15-57. Bombers a sneaky chance for the 8, I reckon.
Yeah, I love the way they play, actually. I think they're very entertaining to watch. St Kilda, they've enjoyed the highs and the lows in very quick succession. I thought they were deplorable, actually. But then again, in fairness, they didn't let them be any good, did they?
No, they really did control St Kilda quite well. And they put that pressure on so that any kicks into the St Kilda forward line were just almost chaos balls in a way.
I reckon Joe, and I love watching Joe Danaher. You never know what's coming next.
He's an exciting player, isn't he? I reckon the Bombers play a little bit similar to us, to be honest.
Which is why they're a bunny.
Yeah, maybe. They're our understudy, maybe. Saturday, we had another close encounter between the Cats and the Hawks. Dangerfield doing it apparently without any legs, blindfolded, and
he's a legend. He's a legend
with a baseball bat up his bum. But he still kicked 5 goals 6 because he's pretty damn good. The Cats getting up 13-10, 88 to the Hawks 12-13, 85. Well, from Dangerfield, there's probably not much to say about that game.
Yes, there is. If I had a baseball bat in my hand and Isaac Smith was in reach, I would have clubbed him over the bloody head after the game.
He didn't know
choking last year or a game not so long ago, I reckon, against Geelong.
Yeah.
Well, they knew they had less than a minute, and as soon as he took the ball, there was a quick look at the umpire, and there was no whistle for it to be a mark. So he had to play on, and then as soon as he started to do it, the umpire called the mark.
All he had to do, Nicky, it was obviously a mark because of the distance the ball travelled.
No, but you still got to wait, and in terms of the time and the pressure that they were under, I can see exactly why he did what he did. Because the umpire was slow. The umpire was slow in calling the mark.
Nicky, he shat himself. Just because exactly what Phoenix said is right. He blew the game when they met earlier this year. He had a shot after the siren, and he missed. He hooked it to the right, and
from a set shot.
From a set shot, and I think he was shitting himself when the ball came to him. He just kicked it straight away, and he hooked it to the right again.
Fair to say he's a better chance on the run than he is a set shot, but he had a bit of pressure on him once he played on. Never mind, the Hawks not doing us a favour there. That's 2 weeks in a row the Hawks haven't done us a favour.
Correct.
Oh no, they did. They evened up the numbers for GWS. So if they'd got a draw, then that would have put Geelong back equal, so that those 4 points away.
Would have been better if they'd have beaten GWS. That would have been nicer.
I know, that would have been nice.
Yeah. Port looking pretty good against pretty disappointing North. Port 19-13, 127 to North, 8 goals, 9-57. It's got all the bandwagoners up and about again, thinking Port are a chance. I still say they haven't beaten anyone of real quality yet.
It's quite simply North, no way.
Yeah, but let's not. I don't want to rain on Port's parade, but they beat a bunch of kids. There was about 6 or 7 kids in that North Melbourne team who barely touched the football. So it was really 18 players on the ground versus about 12 or 13. And so Port did exactly what they should have done, but also no more than that. So nothing startling there.
Yep.
And what was the crowd number for that?
It was only 36 or 38 or something like that. How they can't get numbers to a game like that when they're up and about and in the top 4 is beyond me.
Yep, the Tarps will be coming back.
Collingwood having a good win over Gold Coast. Collingwood 15-13, 103 to Gold Coast 13-10, 88. Doing Nathan Buckley a little favour. Sydney v Giants was a good game, and Sydney getting up, and aren't they in form at the moment? 14-12, 96 to the Giants, 12-11, 83. The Giants in just a touch of bother and in danger of missing top 4 if they're not too careful. Yeah,
I mean, Sydney are the form team. They've won 9 of their last 10, and I think the other one was a loss less than a goal. So they could have easily been 10 from 10. They're the team to be worried about, I think.
And interestingly enough, on that game, Burton, the comment he made during it was that pretty much all of Sydney's goals were from work rate, and GWS's goals were from talent.
I think that's been GWS's problem all along, and I think that's why a team like us has the wood over them, because we do run hard.
Yeah.
And it's very noticeable. They do not play for each other, and they do not bust a gut. Well, with 1 or 2 exceptions, obviously, but as a team, they don't appear to bust a gut. And I think that's where they're vulnerable, the Giants.
Yeah, in fairness to you, Phoenix, you have made that remark about them before, and they're certainly starting to look that way.
Well, I'm a pretty good judge, mate. Today...
I'm sorry.
Say so yourself.
I'm sorry I said that now.
Today we had Richmond. I had a footy-free day today, by the way, so this is the first time I'm looking at these scores. Richmond 16-16, 112, getting up over the Lions 12-9, 81. What was that game like, Macca?
Shit game.
Yeah.
So seriously, for the next 3 games, I can say shit game, shit game, shit game. I mean, seriously, I was switching from one to the other because I couldn't get equality football to watch anywhere. And and in the end, I turned the Freo West Coast Eagles game on. I'd had enough. No, they were all shit games, the next 3.
Right, I was through the last 2 then. Carlton and Bulldogs. Bulldogs 12-10, 82, getting up over Carlton 9-8, 62. I thought the Blues might get over that one, but never mind.
They would have if they'd actually figured out how to kick to players in their same Guernsey as them.
Just turning it over, were they?
Yeah.
They were just deplorable. They would kick it in the general vicinity, so they could kind of run onto it, but it was like, why can't you actually hit them on the chest? So apparently not.
But even the Bulldogs didn't play well, Nikki.
No, they were just as bad. It was like, oh god.
12-10's not a big output. Where did they play again? Was it at Etihad?
No, the MCG.
Yeah. Last game for the round was the Western Derby. West Coast 11-8, 74, getting up over the Dockers 5 goals, 14-44. What the hell?
A pig of a game to watch.
It was so bad I decided to watch a couple of quarters from last night because I knew I was actually going to get some decent football.
I switched it back to normal TV.
Yeah.
Macca was desperate.
And right on the 10-minute mark, which is where we should be hitting the spot here, let's move on to the game we all care about the most. And it was Adelaide 17-14, 116, getting up over a persistent Melbourne. 10 goals, 10-70, a margin in the end of 46 points after the Dees got it back to mid-20s halfway through the third quarter. I thought it was a pretty good win. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I did make a comment. I thought it was more tradesman-like. We had a very dull patch there in the third quarter where we looked very ordinary there for a while, and I think we did. Well, I think we did work very hard and we had to, because Melbourne is a side that doesn't let you have an easy win. They go in very hard, and Bernie Vince, he has to learn to keep those elbows down. He's a shocker for that, and. But overall, I thought they did make us work very hard. Perhaps I've underestimated the win a little bit, but they did have 3 to 4 out of their midfield, and I think that just takes a little bit of the gloss off of our win.
Oh,
Except we also had a few out of our midfield too. People keep forgetting that.
Couple of first choices out, Macca and Lever out in the last quarter, and Sloaney out for a quarter and a bit. I don't think. Yeah. Anyway. Let's have a look at some head-to-head stats. We were pretty much even on disposals, 394 to 393, but our balance kick to handball was much better for the conditions. Melbourne went just about 1-1. We had 224 kicks to 170 handballs, and it showed in our transition work we were much more willing to kick longer or to pinpoint passes, and that shows in the marking stat as well. 67 Melbourne, 94 to Adelaide. We really used the ball quite well by foot, and despite being in front for most of the game, or for all of the game pretty much, we out-tackled them too, 67-58. And I think that was almost the tail of the tape. I think our work rate was fantastic. Hit-out Source did pretty well against Maxi Gawn, who I reckon is probably going to struggle for the rest of the year coming back from that hamstring. 50 hit-outs to 42.
And he did actually say to Source after the game, "I'm stuffed."
Yeah, well, taxing conditions. Although, come on, we'll talk about Tommy Lynch in a minute, but what a super.
Oh, yeah.
Our scoring efficiency, again, was excellent. Our disposals per scoring shot, 12.7 to the Dees, just about 20. Our disposals per goal, 23 to the Dees, 39. Our rebound work and our transition work was just a pleasure to watch for, the majority of the match, barring Melbourne's little comeback in the third. And without delving into it too much just yet, we played a slightly different style. Back to that rebound footy that we were doing at the first half of the season.
Talk about for the first 6 games. Yeah, we definitely did. There's no doubt about that. And look, I'm not underestimating the win because it was very difficult conditions. Although the quality, although they were saying the oval wasn't as slippery as we're thinking, but it's basically what made the ball hard to handle was the sweat from the players. And when you look at Texas Guernsey when he was interviewed after the game, it looked like he'd been in a shower.
Yeah.
It was absolutely wet. So, yeah, look, in fairness to the players, and I may be underestimating their effort somewhat, but I just have that little gnawing thing in the back of my mind that, they had some very good players out of their midfield, and at least it would have been a much, much closer game if they had been there.
But, Macca, you can only beat what's put in front of you, and the way we set up was really interesting considering how they played those extra players off the back line.
Yeah, let's talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
I reckon, because that is a good talking point. And it shows in some of these stats here. I mean, contested posies was a 0-0 draw. It was 150 each, but we were down for quite a bit of the night. Uncontested possessions, 234, Melbourne 245, Adelaide. That evened up a little bit. We were much further in front on uncontested posies at half-time. Our disposal efficiency was great, 72. Melbourne got it up to 70. I think at half-time they were running at mid-60s, so they used the ball better after half-time, which probably helped their cause. Contested marks, 7-4. It wasn't really a contested mark night, although a couple of lads took really good marks. Charlie's was a ripper. But marks inside 50, 10 to 18. We had 18 marks inside 50, and it was a real feature of the game that we had such an open forward line for much of the night. Much to do with the way we did structure up, Nick, I reckon. 45 clearances to 37, but delving a little bit deeper, we actually lost the centre clearances 16-12. but won the stoppage clearances around the ground 21-33. We can have a little bit of a chat about that too. And rebound 50s 30-40 in our favour. Really, that's where I think the game was won and lost. Our ability to bounce off halfback was fantastic. We had 76 intercept possessions. We only turned it over 68 compared to Melbourne 76. So we really did own the halfback line, and it's interesting that the heat maps for both teams show that the majority of the game was played on Melbourne's half-forward line. Our defensive setup in our back six were really solid, I thought, and we absorbed a lot of pressure at times and repeat inside 50s from Melbourne at times. But when we were able to clear the ball out, we just took advantage just about every time.
Yeah, look at that point you made about where the ball just about lived was on Melbourne's half-forward line. And I remember saying to Mrs. Macca that this is quite an astonishing game in the sense that Melbourne have had the majority of the play in their forward line, if not totally deep, but around about the half-forward line. In fact, it's just about lived there. But when we do break away from there, we usually end up getting a score. And I really would love to know what the ratio was for the night.
Yeah, a ratio of what?
Of how long the ball was
spent.
Time spent in their half versus our half.
Hang on. I can tell you, Melbourne spent 56% of their time in the defensive half and 44% in their attacking half.
Well, that's the opposite to what I thought it would be.
Yeah, although when you... Sorry, I'm just flicking through AFL app here. That'll tell me. Adelaide spent 61% of time in defensive half and 39% in the forward half. So you got to remember, Macca, that that includes, basically forward of 50 and forward of centre and back of centre. And whilst Melbourne only spent 50-something% in their defensive half, there was a lot of ball up around the defensive part of the wings for us, I reckon. A lot of contested ball and a lot of stoppages around that area.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Let's look at some individuals, and then we can talk a little bit about how the game played out. Lairdy had 34, 17 and 7, 5 marks, 3 tackles, 1 inside 50, 14 contested posies, 73.5%. 4 clearances and 9 rebound 50s, a game high for Lairdy. And he accumulates, doesn't he? I didn't notice him dominating possession-wise, but he just racks them up.
Yeah, I thought he played a very good game. He reads the play so well that if he doesn't get the ball himself, he goes to the spot where our player is likely to be to get the ball or be involved in the play, and often is that extra man that helps out to get the ball out.
Yeah, for me, I thought it was really interesting that they used Melksham on Smith initially because he's the one they use as kind of like that defensive forward. And then they switched him on to Laird. And he was ineffective against Smith and he was ineffective against Laird.
Yeah. Lairdy had a team-high 10 intercepts as well, intercept possessions. And that's really his thing. And I remember talking about a stat a couple of weeks ago, I reckon, where we score the most when Lairdy initiates the chain across halfback. I would have thought it was Lever or maybe Smith, but it's when Laird gets it across halfback that we score the most. So it's really important that he gets so much ball, and the fact that he was able to intercept so often obviously assisted in our output. I thought the Crouch boys were pretty good through the middle. Matty had 31 posies, 13 kicks, 18 handballs, 4 marks, 3 tackles, a couple of inside 50s, 13 contested. Efficiency a little down, although it wasn't terribly noticeable. So he only had the 1 clanger, went at 61%, 5 clearances, 3 rebound 50s, showing that he was working both ends of the ground. I thought it was a really solid game from Matt again. Yeah,
it was interesting because I thought Brad owned the first half and Matt owned the second half. And, I mean, they both did bits in each half, but Brad was the dominant one first half and Matt was the very dominant one in the second half. And Matt really is, and I've been saying it for quite some weeks now, that Matt is up amongst the elite midfielders now.
He was just so poised with the ball. And a couple of those handballs he was doing were really proactive. And his ability he knows he's about to get tackled, and he just does that little lift of the arms, which keeps them free.
Yep.
And it's simple things like that, but it just allows him, and as he does it, he has a quick look around to see where he's going to fire off that handball.
But aren't they a tough pair of hombres, these two?
Yeah.
They don't take a step backwards. And he was getting into Lewis, he was getting into Vince. They really didn't like Lewis.
Yeah. Matty looks like he's starting to get a little bit more time with the ball now. He's not looking as rushed.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think as a consequence, we're getting more value from his disposals than we were maybe even at the beginning of the year. He just looks like he's a little bit more comfortable at the level, and he's got a little bit more composure in tight. And was just really solid output from him, and he's certainly turning into a midfield general, much in the vein of Scotty Thompson back in the day. I think Matt's going to develop into that sort of player for us.
Coming out of the back lines, he is our go-to player.
Mm.
He's the midfielder they all want to kick to, that will do that little short layup kick for him, and he then instigates the run often.
His brother Brad, pretty good game too. 27 touches, only the 9 kicks and 18 handballs. Probably the only knock, 3 marks, kicked goal, 7 tackles.
Lovely goal.
Yeah, 7 tackles, 13 contested posies, went at 67%, 5 clearances as well, 3 rebound 50s. Just looks to be working his way into some decent form. Still looks a little bit rushed to me around tight situations. But he looks like he's trending upwards for mine.
Yeah, he's definitely on an upward trend. And you're quite right. He hasn't got quite the time that Matt has at the moment, and he is a little bit more rushed. But he does go where angels fear to tread. I thought he would. He set a very good example in the first half. In particular, he was one of our toughest players in the first half, and he won some hard ball.
And,
we talked a couple of weeks ago about him, just saying he needs to, there's a bit more of a step we need to see from him. And he's done that since then. For the past 3 weeks, he's just taken those little incremental steps up.
Yeah, definitely has.
Don't disagree with you there, Nicky. I'd certainly had my doubts as to whether he could take another step, at least this season. But he does look more comfortable. He looks to have shaken off any ill effects from, his missed pre-season, and I think he'll benefit from another one. But he looks a little bit more damaging now than he did even probably, 4 or 5 weeks ago. Yeah,
and I think that, after, and it probably will be next year, I would expect him to start to get a little bit more time like Matty's got. Matt's definitely developed more time with the ball this year, and I reckon Brad will do that next year.
Yep. Of the rest of the midfielders, Richie Douglas had 23 touches, 15 and 8, 10 contested posies, went at 82.5%, which is certainly an improvement on recent weeks. 4 clearances as well. I thought it was a serviceable game from Richie.
Yeah, good honest performance.
D-Mac, sorry, Nicky, to cut you off there. I've got this clock running.
No, all I had was yep, agree.
D-Mac, particularly in the first half, I was better. Best game I've seen from David for a while. I was talking to Donkey at halftime, and g'day to Donkey Magoo on the chat. It was great talking to Donkey at halftime. For those that missed it, we had our live boundary rider from St Mary's Oval up there, isn't it? TIO.
The Northern Territory, T.I. Crow.
Especially David's second goal was very composed and quite aggressive, his little cutback towards goal. So 11 kicks, 10 handballs, 21 posies, 3 marks, 2 goals, 3 tackles, 7 contested possessions, but 23 pressure acts, which was second only to Huey Greenwood in terms of the number of pressure acts on the ground. I just felt like David looked more determined and focused.
Well, he has been for the last few weeks, and he's definitely earning his spot at the moment. They had that situation where he got dropped and he came back in without playing a game, which really isn't probably kosher. But the message seems to have got through to him, because in particular, his last couple of games, I think, have been very good. And both of his 2 goals, I thought he almost made out of nothing.
The second one, he had a look to see if he could pass it off as soon as he got the ball, saw that there wasn't, and then just went, okay, I have to kick it. And he did. And just did that lovely little weave through. It was really interesting looking back at just rewatching that first quarter and the last quarter, because I was really looking out for Atkins and see where he was positioning in terms of our other wings. And the one thing we did that I could see from the telecast, but it still wasn't clear enough because they don't show enough of the ground, was that we've previously often ended up with both our wingmen on the same side. It seemed we were very determined to keep them separate, to keep one on each side, and Atkins was also the one that was dropping further back.
I noticed that too, Nick. We often had an outrider on the other side.
To stop that switch that Hodge was talking about in the Hawthorn game.
Yeah, and that's despite the fact that we played quite a condensed structure. We seemed to be playing a third of the ground, and yet we did have those outriders, which I noticed is a little bit of a change, or it seemed to be a change. Anyway, it's hard to tell on the telly, but I certainly noticed that we did have those people staying outside of the main sort of, structure of what was going on.
I think we should also mention that McKay also ran 15.3 kilometres.
Yeah, and game 5:43, mate. I just thought it was the best game I've seen David play, and it was an attitudinal thing. He seemed damaging. He didn't, he's a light player, so he's going to get ragdolled when he gets tackled. But I just felt like he was more aggressive at the ball, and I really, really liked what he brought. Same with Charlie Cameron. I thought he brought a little bit of his form back. 12 and 8 for 20 touches. I think he had 16 to half time, so quite in the second half. 13 contested possessions, took 2 marks, including 1 hanger, which was pretty nice. Which should be mark of the round, but everybody's going to wank on about Danaher's. The fact that he jumped over a bloke that was actually taller than Carlisle and got just as high as Danaher, and he's shorter than Danaher. But betcha that one will be voted mark of the round and not Charlie's. Oh, you can't knock Joey. 8 inside 50s
I can.
from Charlie as well, and that's where he was at his most damaging, particularly early. 13 contested posies, 6 clearances as well. It's really good. At times he was in the middle, and at times he was off the wing, but he was getting around it, and I really enjoyed his game.
Yeah, he had 3 quarters of a good game. He didn't touch the ball in the third quarter, and that was his one quarter that he as I said, if you don't touch, you're not doing much. But these other 3 quarters I thought very good.
Yep. Rory Atkins had a stinker, I thought. Only the 18 touches, 1 mark, 2 inside 50s. Only 3 contested possessions, 5 clangers, only 1 clearance. I just felt like he found it difficult to get him involved, and I'm starting to wonder whether he's one of those players that will only be prominent when the game's played a certain way.
Well, I've got him in the crosshairs. I was absolutely furious with his game, to be honest, and I'm sure that the coach really stuck it up him at 3/4 time. By 3/4 time, he'd had 8 cowardly touches. He was shitting himself all game, I reckon. His lack of physicality was horrible. He had 10. I think he had 10 disposals in the last quarter, and it was a very good last quarter. But it took, I think, the coaches to really give it to him at 3/4 time, because he had 8 touches in the first 3 quarters. And some of his stuff was really weak and cowardly, I thought. He avoided physicality, something shocking, I thought.
He didn't, when going back and rewatching that first quarter, Macca. I think you're actually being a little bit too harsh on him. He was the one, as I said before, who was doing a lot of defensive work to get it. He was blocking, getting in the hole. He wasn't shirking any contests down there, and that was in the first quarter.
Did you not see him shirk during the night, Nikki?
Not really. I haven't watched the second and third quarter again.
But
it wasn't noticeable to me that he shirked necessarily, Macca. I felt like he struggled to get involved.
Yeah, I agree with Phoenix.
I called it several times during the game, and but that's the way we see things differently. To me, if you're not totally committed, then you are shirking it. In shirking, it can take several forms. I don't mean like he just didn't put in hard enough.
The one thing that I would say about that, and I was going to touch on this a little bit later, I think we're concentrating very hard on not committing too many to the contest at the moment. And I wonder whether Atkins hanging on the outside is a consequence of that.
It's an instruction, yeah.
I don't, and I'm not making an excuse for Rory because you know me, Macca, I like blokes to go in when it's their turn to go. But we were down in stoppages and contested possessions at half time, down on inside 50s, and yet we were up by 40 points. And it seemed to me as if this has happened over the last couple of weeks. We talked about this last week as well. It seems to me at the moment that we're not committing as many to the contest, and I can't remember for the life of me which coach it was on SEN during the week, but they alluded to something like this, that they have changed things a little bit and they're not sucking too many in around the ball. So I don't know whether that's having an impact on Atkins or the look of Atkins' game.
Yeah, what you said is true. Because I heard it separately to SEN. I think it was Clark that made a similar comment to what you were saying, that one of their problems in the past has been everybody was being too eager to get the ball and nobody on the outside, and that leaves you exposed if the opposition leave one out there. And maybe there was some of that in there, but he still only had the 8 possessions for 3 quarters, and he really lifted his game in the last quarter, and he had 10 possessions in the last quarter. And I thought to me, he is a highly talented player, and I just want to see the best come out of him, because Rory Atkins at his best can be a match winner, but Rory Atkins, as he played in the first 3 quarters, will lose you a game.
Well, I don't know about that, I'm not apologising.
We didn't lose the game
at all. I think. Again, this is another comment I was going to make down the track, but to me, we're back to almost full strength now in terms of our setup. There's probably one or two changes that you'd make, but by and large, particularly up forward and our back 6 looks reasonably set. And to me, now we're back to that team which is the sum of the parts rather than relying on too many individuals. And at times, you're going to have one part doing more of the work than another part, depending on the game and how it's being played. And I just wonder whether, we see at times Miller having a quiet game or Atkins having a quiet game or Lukey Brown or someone like that. And I just wonder whether it's part of this whole role-playing situation. And it's so hard to tell from the outside because we don't know what the KPIs are for the coaches and for the players. If you see a run of poor games, and Rory probably has had a bit of a run of quiet games in terms of disposal count, maybe that's cause for concern. But individually, I didn't see Rory do a hell of a lot wrong. I just didn't see him get a lot of it. I guess that's my conclusion there.
And for me, I just have to compare it to what was McKay's game like, because it's the 2 wingers, and we know what McKay's game was like. We've just talked about it. So conversely, he was the one who was pushing up forward, so one of our wingers has to stay back.
And we were playing 2 wingers on each side, defensive and offensive. I noticed that. And anyway, let's go through the rest of these individual stats, and then we might talk about structure a little bit. Because I want to talk about Hugh Greenwood.
God, he's good.
He's just really good. I mean, he only had the 16 touches, but he only had 64% time on ground. which was miles under everyone else except Jake. The next lowest, I think, Sloaney had 55, obviously, but the next lowest, I think, is 78% time on ground. So,
and was that Lynch?
78 was Riley Knight, actually. Lynchy had 79, so pretty close. But so Hughes on for probably 20% less time than everyone else, and yet the impact that he has when he's on the ground, he had an impact in the first quarter, and he was the main reason why we scored our first goal in the last quarter. And he wasn't actually on the ground much in the third quarter, I noticed, after getting that knock when he kind of got tunnelled a bit. But when he's on the ground, he
a bit, yeah.
Well, yeah. But I mean, when he's on the ground, he always has an impact. Always has an impact.
I 100% agree with you, and it is no coincidence that, in my opinion, that once he got tunnelled, that did coincide with Melbourne's that resurgence that they had for that period. But when I watch somebody like Hugh Greenwood, this is what I'm getting at with Atkins. I look at Hugh Greenwood. If you just watch that guy, I know.
Different position on the ground. He's always around the ball.
But let me finish. He's got that look on his face, and I love the look on his face. He is going to get the ball or grab somebody or something like that. He's just waiting for it to come. He's wanting it to come.
And that's why.
And a 25-year-old compared to how old's Atkins? Yeah, there's a different level of maturity and there's a different level of experience. So even though Atkins has probably played more continuous footy than what Greenwood has had experience at a high, intense level of athletic competition than what Atkins has.
Perhaps so. I just love I love his attitude.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, go on.
More than anybody, I love his attitude. If you just watch the guy and you watch his face, he just wants something to come his way. He doesn't want something the other team, the rest of the team, he wants to do it. And I just love that attitude.
Yeah. 7 clearances, 2 in the middle and 5 at stoppages around the ground, 7 tackles, 3 inside 50s, scored 72 fantasy points from 60% time on ground. But the biggest stat for mine is 27 pressure acts, a team high by the length of the straight pressure acts in 64% time on ground. His disposal efficiency was a little bit off, but you can forgive that on a slippery night when he's working in close. He's just a beast, and I think there's an inkling from certain sections of the media about how good he's going to be, but by and large he's flying under the radar. But he's going to come under some scrutiny over the next 12 months because when he starts, playing 75, 80% time on ground, the stats that this kid's going to pull as an inside midfielder are going to be ridiculous.
I don't think he's too far under the radar anymore. Not, even when Pendlebury was watching our game last week, I think it was, he texted that this guy can really play.
Yeah.
And he hasn't flown under the radar of teams. If you watch the way they set up around him, they're very mindful when he's around the ball. And I'm trying to remember which game it was, but there was a very noticeable targeting they were doing on him.
But it's helping the other guys as well. It's helping Brad and Matt.
Yeah. Well, you notice that I think it's had an impact on Matt getting more outside ball or uncontested ball. And we've seen, as you commented earlier, Matt's disposal as a consequence is more damaging because he's getting it a little bit more on the outside. But yeah, I could spend the next 20 minutes raving about Hugh Greenwood. He's just going to be something special. But let's move on because I thought our back six was really, really solid.
Worked brilliantly together.
Yeah, I thought Leddy did really well. I thought Talia, even though he got dragged up the ground quite a bit, quite regularly, had 19 touches and 7 marks.
Played well.
Thought he played well.
He had the imaginary free bait against him as well.
Brady Smith, I thought, was really good off halfback. Gained a ton of metres and was pretty damaging with his kicks. Only had the 3 contested possessions, but when at 79% disposal efficiency, had the 3 rebound 50s, a couple of clearances as well from Brody. I just thought it was a solid game from him. Lukey Brown was very solid on at the back pocket. Didn't let
on
their
Jeffy,
smalls-
Jeffy Gartlett, Jeffy.
Yeah. Why do they keep
Oh God,
calling
that
him Jeffy?
annoyed me.
Yeah, that's what
He's not. I'm sorry, he's not your friend.
I say
His name's
I say that to Mrs. Mack every time. What is this with this bloody Jeffy? He's the only Jeffy I know.
Jake Kelly, I thought had a pretty decent game. Jakey Lever, until he went off, had a very good game. Again, intercept marking beast. I just thought we were very solid and we looked very organised defensively. I felt like we worked back really well defensively. It looked to me like we were compressing the ground. There was a lot of open space, 60 metres away from the contest. Obviously, a plan to clog it up for Melbourne and then break and transition, and we did that pretty well for a large part of the night. Our forward line also looked pretty bloody good. Tom Lynch is an absolute superstar. 27 possessions, 19 kicks, 8 handballs, 11 marks, 3 goals, 2, 4 inside 50s. Went at 60% disposal efficiency. 5 marks inside 50. This bloke was in intensive care 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
Amazing. I mean, more amazing than danger. No, I thought his work rate was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. I'd love to know how much mileage or kilometres he covered.
Oh, it'd be a ridiculous amount. He's lost about, what did they say, about 8 kilograms, Nikki?
No, he lost 5, but a lot of that would be water retention. That's what you lose initially being stuck in an ICU.
Mm.
So that would have come back up fairly quickly once he was back and being hydrated again. I did love the comment though from Pikey that in the aftermatch where he said that Tom came into his office on Monday morning, picked up his name and put it back on the board. He's like, I'm ready. He's like, nah, you're not leaving me out there. My name's on the board. And walked out again. Just like, there we go.
And just as well he did, because I thought he played an outstanding game.
Oh, God.
I actually thought it was really interesting as well. Every goal he kicked, did you notice how he hugged the other players? That was really interesting.
See, we're men. We don't take any notice of that crap, Nick.
I didn't take it.
Well, normally they don't
touchy-feely
hug.
crap.
They normally don't hug each other after a goal, but he was. Yep, he
So
was
what does
hugging
that mean?
Tex.
What
I
does
think
that
he was
mean?
appreciating the fact that he was there. That's why he was making the most of it. I don't know. It was just really weird. It was like the rest of them all got these high fives and everything else, and Lynch just go around. I have to hug you. And I'm going, what? Okay.
I actually think that this is the only analysis show in Australia that has hugs for and hugs against. You've introduced a new stat into the vernacular, Nikki.
Well, we know all about Atkins' hair.
If you've heard of the X-Files, we've got the Nicky Files.
Hugs for. All right. Tex as well. A mountain of a game. 15 kicks, 6 handballs for 21 posies, 8 marks, 4 goals, 4, 3 tackles, 3 inside 50s. Worked his way up and down the ground. Took 5 marks inside 50. Probably the most assertive I've seen Tex for quite some time, and seems to be working his way into a nice little patch of form at the moment.
And starting
Also,
to think. He's starting to really look like he thinks he's going well, doesn't he?
Yep.
3 of his 4 goals were kicked off of his left foot.
Yeah, you've stolen a line. I was going to mention about the left foot, because he got 3 with his left foot. McKay got 1 with his left foot. Eddie got 1 with his left foot. And I think McGovern got 1 with his left foot as well. It'd be interesting what percentage of our goals were kicked with their left foot.
Well,
They
they
were
were.
out of your ass today. I can't even keep up with this stunning analysis.
I'm going to throw it into the Nicky Files.
Oh, you can have some too, Macca. They did actually talk about it in the call that he literally is the most talented big man on both sides of his body.
Oh, when he's on form, I mean, sometimes he tries to do too much and he's not balanced and he'll flop those kicks. But when he's in form, because he's such a touch player, he's such a field player.
Yeah.
Talking about Lynchy and his hugging, it's very much like Darren Jarman. Darren Jarman was all about touch and feel and just it came instinctively. Tex when he's on song is exactly the same. It's all instinct and he just looks good when he's in that sort of frame of mind. And let's hope that he can continue that form trend moving into finals because we look so much more dangerous when he's asserting himself like that and playing up and down the ground like he was.
He's playing with a little bit of arrogance at the moment as well.
Yep. Eddie was a little bit quiet, 16 touches, the 5 marks, 2 goals, 2, not a bad output really, a goal, 5 inside 50s. I just felt like it was just another almost game from Eddie. He had the ball, he looked up and about,
but
not quite.
If Macca wants to talk about somebody shirking a contest, then Eddie's been doing that for the past couple of weeks.
He gets bashed around a fair bit.
He has been. That game against Carlton, he was feeling his shoulders quite a bit. He came off and was actually seen to. They were really hammering into the ground. So I think that maybe we've said, okay, just back off that little bit, Eddie.
I think
just
Eddie
protect yourself through.
Normally, I think he goes in places where he shouldn't go in.
Well, you're right, Nicky. Maybe it is a bit of a directive just to not be ridiculous about it. But to be honest with you, if you're relying on your smallest player, who's also your most mercurial player, to do all these tough pressure acts and contested ball situations, you're probably looking at the wrong person. It's all right for Eddie to provide defensive pressure when the ball's on the way out, but I don't really want him putting his head over the ball where he's going to get belted.
And just interesting is that how good this guy really is, because we're saying he sort of had an average nearly game, and he's had 16 possession and kicked a couple of goals and assisted in a couple of others. So for another player, it would be a good game.
And sitting third on the Coleman.
So another player, it would be a very good game, and for Eddie, we say it's just a so-so game.
Yeah. Look, I felt like he looked.
He contributed really well.
Yeah, he looked more in touch than he has done over the last month or so. Having Mitch McGovern back in our forward line, even when he doesn't have huge numbers, just his presence there just makes such a difference. I reckon it releases Tex.
Massive.
It allows Tex to get up and down the ground a little bit more because we've still got that marking power up forward.
Massive difference.
It just changes the dimension of our forward line. I mean, Mitchie only had the 11 touches, but he took 7 marks, kicked 2 goals, 2, had 4 inside 50s because he does get up the ground a bit as well at times, and 3 marks inside 50. So, from your third toll, that's a pretty good output. That's a Jack Gunston kind of game. But it's the sum of the parts situation, and when he's there, it adds an extra dimension and it releases others to do other things.
Yeah, as one of the commentators said, you've got 4 biggish guys there in the forward lines. If we take in Lynchy into that category as well, in taking McGovern and Jenkins, Walker, and Tommy Lynch. Yeah, if you take those 4, they said they're all good, but they're all so different. None of them are alike. And that makes it so difficult to defend against them.
And they're also so mobile, all 4 of them.
Now, I felt that JJ at times slipped into his old habits on Saturday.
Yeah, there were a couple of lazy moments there.
First quarter, very early on, he definitely shirked the contest, and Eddie was coming the other way, and the Melbourne guy was between him, and I could see Eddie looking at Jenkins going, come on, you're the man mountain, you go for this ball, don't wait for me. And as a consequence, the Melbourne player got the ball.
Yeah,
it was a definite squib from JJ, and I think it's still something that he has to concentrate on. I think when he's thinking about it, he's okay, and it's obviously been front of mind for the last few weeks, but I think still his natural instinct is to avoid contact. So I'm sure he's determined to get through that, but he needs to keep it front of mind.
It's not. I think being a beast is not a natural part of his game, but he has got the physical attributes to add that to his game, and obviously the club's been working at him to try and add that in there. But I think we will find that as you quite rightly pointed out, there was at least one or two occasions where he didn't do what he should have done. But I think because it's not natural to him, we can expect that now and again.
Agreed.
But I think if you look at the overall game, there was still actually quite a few contests that he did crash the pack, and he was using his weight around a little bit. So whilst there were those issues at the start, and I spotted them as well, Phoenix, he seemed to work into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say he didn't, Nicky. What we're saying is it's something that he's working at. It's not it's not natural to him. So I think we just got to expect that now and again he's going to let us down in that area or let himself down in that area. But eventually he'll get to the point where it becomes more of a second nature to him. But it's really a change in his game.
I think you also have to look at mindset. Yeah, like how we consider Greenwood and his basketball background and the position that he played, that he is that physical type of player. But JJ and the type of role that he played, they're not normally as physical in that way because they get in a lot of trouble with fouls, etc. So I think we're fighting against that as well, and that's still ingrained.
I'd love to have 22 players with Greenwood's mindset. You wouldn't get beat.
Now,
nope.
I'm going to throw a little bit of a cat amongst the pigeons here because whilst I felt that Andy Otten had a good game, I feel like his selection could have caused us a bit of grief had Jesse Hogan had, more than a couple of games back from his illness. Otten had 10 disposals, 4 marks, 2 tackles, only the 2 contested possessions, and not a huge amount else. I felt like we could have got burnt by that one, and I don't know whether Andy Otten is the answer as Hardigan's replacement.
Well, Hogan was very, very much out of touch, wasn't he? And he had a period where he marked 2 or 3 in a row, and it looked more like Phoenix and I kicking the ball than an AFL player. His kicking was terrible, but. I know what you're saying. You're saying a good forward there might have really given a bit of punishment.
Well, a forward for
me,
size.
Those balls that he actually marked, not many other players would have. He's just got those such special attributes. He's really hard to match up on when he's on song. His teammates were not doing him any favours whatsoever with how they were delivering the ball in.
No, absolutely not. There was a couple of contests, though, Nick, that really highlighted for me the danger we have playing Otten as a key post. And it was all to do with body work. And Jesse Hogan is very good at using his body, but then most of the big forwards are. Pardon me. We got Tommy Hawkins and Harry Taylor and those blokes next week. And I don't know whether Andy, as the second key defender, is the right answer. And I know the cupboard's pretty bare in that regard, but it worries me a bit because Andy, as good as he is at reading the play and as smart as he is as a footballer, he's not the same weight as some of these big forwards, and we could get found out if we're not careful.
Well, I think our biggest problem is that with the injury that we've got, with Hardigan down, there aren't many other options to put there.
I think he and Lever were swapping depending on where they were and when the ball was coming back in and when they were picking them back up. So
they do that.
They were tag teaming Hogan. So I think it's one of them will be loose or one of them will be on Hogan. On Hogan was pretty much the setup.
Yeah, but that's what total defence means, Nicky. Sometimes you do have to pick up your teammates, man.
Yeah, but that's all well and good when the game's being played on your terms. But if you're playing an opposition that's got on top of you and therefore getting a lot of one-on-one competition, you need to be able to match up physically. And I don't know whether Andy can match up physically against some of the bigger forwards. It's the only thing that stood out to me about our back six was when Andy was 1-on-1 against Hogan. He didn't look quite up to it from a size matchup. So it'll be interesting. I mean, most of the people on the chat are saying that Otten's in every day of the week, and he might not even drop out when Hardigan gets back. I can guarantee you that Hardigan will be straight back in when he's fit, because as much as he stuffs up occasionally, we just need that size.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And whilst he stuffs up occasionally, it also means that he performs to the standard that we need him to the majority of the time.
Correct. Yeah, I'm one of his greatest critic for his errors.
Yes, you are.
I am, but by the same token, I do appreciate the fact that he does about 70-80% of it very, very well.
Yeah. So 5 minutes to go, and have we noticed a change in how we're playing over the last, probably since the Hawthorn loss?
Sorry, we just missed one play there, Rory. I just want to make a comment. I'm very worried about Rory that he's almost useless when he's got being tagged.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I did mean to.
It was really interesting. There was somebody who was at the game, and I can't remember who it was, but they talked about it on Big Footy, that what he was doing was actually dragging Vince away from the play the majority of the time. So what we're doing now is, okay, we don't have Rory. In a way, he's not as effective. He's there to set up that midfield, and then and specifically for Vince, he was keeping Vince as far away from the play as possible.
Yeah, but
so that was making it even harder for Melbourne, because that's how Bernie has actually been quite damaging in terms of tagging somebody, because not only can he tag and nullify them, but he can get the ball a lot himself, and he normally uses it quite well.
Is that how you want to use your elite midfielder though, Nicky? Seriously?
No.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
If he's got an issue and we're working the way through it because he's not used to it, you have to try and turn it into a positive somehow.
No, it's a bloody big negative. He was our best player for the first half of the year before they started tagging him. Once they started tagging him, he's become getting close to our worst. Well, he's our worst player at the moment.
He wasn't one of our best players. He was a Brownlow medal favourite.
Correct.
After 6 rounds.
Yep.
And the impact that this tagging situation has had on him is pretty tangible now. He's gone from high 20, early 30 stats down to, low teens. It's just, it's a real concern for Rory. And someone like Bernie Vince, I know Bernie could be a pain in the arse and he tags it closely, but Rory got blanketed by a bloody teenager against Hawthorn. And he needs, the one thing that I notice when Rory's getting tagged hard, he doesn't run. And
that's correct. 100% right.
He doesn't run. And we saw last week when he didn't have a hard tag, he started to get on his bike a little bit and provide a bit of link up. When was the last time you saw Rory running down the outer flank, having a bounce and having a ping from 50? It's been months. And I don't know why. It seems Rory wants to engage with the tagger, and what I'd be doing at the beginning of the game is looking at Bernie or whoever's on his back and say, all right, well, let's see if you can run out 4 quarters with me. And I'd just be doing 100-metre sprints up and down the ground.
Correct.
A bit hard if you're being held on to.
Yeah, but you just got to work through that, Nicky. You have to work through that. Everyone gets dragged forward. Ask a forward how difficult it is to take a contested mark when you're getting your arms chopped, when you're getting bear hugged, when you're getting, holds and all that. It's not easy for a forward to take a bloody mark up forward these days.
Yeah, they have one hand scrunching up their jump and pulling them back and off balance. Yeah. But they have to perform.
Yep.
And what, Nicky, you just can't concede. And at the moment, what Rory's doing is conceding.
Yeah, well, he's engaging with his tagger, whereas he's not. It distracts him off what he wants to do, and he's all of a sudden he's concentrating more on beating his tagger, rather than just playing his game and backing himself in to have the engine and the determination and tenacity. It's gonna, obviously getting tagged is going to have an impact on you in close because you're just getting blocked all the time. But in general field play, being tagged shouldn't have that much of an impact. Rory should still be able to get the uncontested ball, and he should still be able to run up and down the ground. And they're the numbers that are missing. You know, I can deal with his contested numbers being down, but it's his total output that's down, and that's the worry.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And it was terrible to see him get up all dazed and confused.
That was horrible, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's
And just on that, if Tex wasn't already a shoo-in for the AFLPA captain for his work that he did at the start of the year around the racism issue, that's definitely going to get him over the line with the rest of the AFLPA.
It was the only one that Rory was going to listen to.
I did like the comment somebody said that Tex is like the bloke when you're at the pub and you've had a few too many and your wife's telling you to leave and you know you're ignoring it, but Tex comes in and says leave and you go, okay.
Yeah. That said, Rory wouldn't have had a clue what was going on.
No, not at all. And you could tell it.
Yeah. And
Tex actually said this morning that when he went up to him, he knew that wasn't Sloaney.
Yeah, because you could see it on his face. He was kind of blank and confused and all that.
And he kept saying, where's the ball? Where's the ball?
Just a hypothetical question. What would they have done if he hadn't responded to Walker?
Well, this is the thing, because this is my understanding, and I don't know, it may have changed, but once the stretcher came on the ground, the game had
you have to
stop
leave
until the player leaves the ground. Now, I thought that the player had to leave on the stretcher because we've seen instances where players have felt like they've been all right, you know, with a leg injury or whatever, but because the stretcher's already there, they've had to be towed off.
Or a neck injury.
Something like that,
yeah. No, I think what it is now is that they may not need to go off on the stretcher, but there is a mandatory time limit because the stretcher's been called, so that he can't come back in on. So it's like the concussion rule. I think that's what they've equalised it back up on that, in that you can take somebody, they can go off on their own steam, but it's the stretcher was called and it's as if they were taken off on a stretcher.
Yeah, and the game has to stop once the stretcher's out. You know, I've been in that position myself, Mako. I had a massive head clash with someone once, and we both got knocked out. And when I came to, I started swinging, and I was told later by some doctor that it's not unusual when you get knocked out like that. It's your body's fight and flight mechanism kicking in. And I only know I started swinging because someone told me. I wouldn't have had a bloody clue because I can't remember it at all. And so when I saw Rory in that situation, you know, I kind of empathised with him because he wouldn't have had a clue what was going on.
It was horrible. It was horrible to watch because I wondered where this was going to end up.
Well, and the thing that shat me off,
and I think
the
commentators.
Yes, he's such a brave warrior. Blah, but it's got
and
nothing
how
to
tough.
do with that.
No,
he's actually struggling because he didn't have his senses about him, you know, and it's got nothing to... I mean, no one doubts that he's a warrior, but to characterise what he was going through in that context was completely wrong. It was completely misread.
Now, would you play him this week against Geelong?
No.
And who would you put in?
He passed the test this morning.
He did pass the test this morning, but they'll do... I think there's another 2 that'll happen during the week. And he'll be monitored as well. His sleep patterns will be monitored because that also tells you quite a bit regarding concussion as to what's happening there.
The jab puts that far down. I'd almost rather see Tomo playing than him.
Oh, let's not get carried away.
No, Macca, no. Put Cam Ellis-Yolman out there.
I said
he can run now.
I said almost.
You get banned for saying shit like that.
I said almost.
Disrespect to Tomo, but I think we're in pretty much consensus on Scotty's situation. Look, I don't know. I'd be surprised if he got up, particularly because it's a 6-day break.
Yeah.
So who goes in if he comes out?
Well, it has to be Miller or Gallucci.
Yeah, Miller will come back in probably.
Yeah, he probably will be Miller.
It will limit our midfield rotations, which is a worry, because that's something that we're going to need against Geelong, even if Dangerfield doesn't get up or if Dangerfield ends up playing up forward.
Oh, he'll play.
Oh, on that. Very interesting comment from Lee in the first quarter that we went 8 minutes in the first quarter without an interchange. So we banked some of our interchange. That was a lovely little tactic so that we could use them in the last quarter.
Yep. So and it seemed to pay off because we certainly hit the ground running in the last. Look, I don't know on Sloaney. I probably want to give him the week off anyway. But it'll be interesting to see how they handle it during the week. Jake Lever's the other one. I think it got described on Channel 7 today as neural pain in the hamstring. Rather than...
so like the nerves causing the pain, which is what Talia had.
Yep. Apparently it was tightness, wasn't it?
Yeah, which is the same thing. I was just trying to sound as if I was smart, but I only heard someone else say a word and thought I'd use it.
You fooled me.
Yeah, well, give me a...
Don't you say it.
All right, can we talk about our setup at the start? Because I was really interested in that and what we did around centre bounces.
Yes, let's talk about that. We're at 106, so I'm going to give us another 9 minutes to 1:15, so go your hardest.
Well, I thought it was really interesting because we didn't start with Rory in the centre. It was actually Charlie. And Vince is like, okay, I'm on Charlie. So Charlie then two crouches. But what I found most interesting was the way that our forwards set up. So we only had 4 forwards and they actually set up in a square, leaving the middle clear. And then you had the other 2 forwards went up on the wing to be the higher wing, so to speak. And then our wingmen set up defensively at the back. Every tap that Jacobs got, he tapped it away from those extra players that Melbourne have coming in. And if we got possession, we made sure our kicks went over the top of their heads. It was really clear that that's what we were doing. We were countering their 7 off the back.
I reckon, though, and you're right, that's exactly how we did set up. But I reckon Melbourne contributed to that because if they showed a little bit of behind the goal footage, showing Melbourne's 4 across halfback. But what I noticed is that those blokes were just jogging in, and because they weren't hitting the contest at pace, they were actually caught in no man's land where they weren't deep enough to impact the kick forward.
Correct.
But they were dragged up too high they weren't high enough, to actually impact the contest at all. I just felt like if you're going to play 4 off the back, you want 2 of them actually hitting the contest really hard.
Well, they were sort of, as you said, they were in no man's land, and so they weren't affecting the contest, but the ball could go over their head, so they weren't saving it at the back either.
Exactly. It looked really weird from behind. And I felt like I don't know whether they actually knew what they were supposed to do. That's what it looked like to me. It's like, we're running off the back of the square, but, what's our job sort of thing. I'm sure they've trained it and drilled it, but it didn't seem like it was a very... they didn't seem very comfortable in what they were doing, so that's probably something that Goodwin has to work on with them. I felt like our structure was pretty good.
They didn't know what to do with our 4 wingers in a way. They were just like, but hang on, what do we do now? The way that we set up completely messed up how they've trained to play it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, whether that's what affected it.
I don't know so much. Our wingers didn't seem to have much of an impact unless we lost the ruck contest. If we lost the centre clearance or lost that first possession, our wingers tended to be those outrider players that would get the second or third disposal. But I just felt like those blokes that Melbourne had coming off the back weren't really doing anything. They were just, I don't know, it seemed a little bit pointless to me. I did notice around the ground, though, and I alluded to it earlier, we only had 2 or 3 in and around the contest, and we had a lot of blokes hanging back, 5-10 metres off the
circling
contest.
Around.
But we also, even though we didn't commit that many to the actual ball drop, 90% of our players were actually within 40 metres of the contest. And you don't often see us compress the ground like that, but it was very noticeable on Saturday night that we really did tighten up the ground and left a hell of a lot of open space.
Well, you can't argue though. That's what happened, but
It's just a very different tactic to what I've seen us play at times.
Well, TO Oval is. I've been up there, and it's a large oval and it's quite wide. So I think
it's like the MCG.
It's very much so, and it's very wide on the wings. And I thought we just took advantage of that.
Yeah,
because that's the one thing I've thought is that our game style actually suits the bigger ground, like the MCG.
Well, we do play well on the MCG, and one of the reasons for that is that opportunity around the wings.
I felt like Melbourne got less opportunities to slingshot. I felt like that most of their run and carry was fairly rushed. They didn't have a lot of chains off their half-back line, and I felt like a lot of their work, even when they were coming back at us, was very workmanlike, whereas what we were doing was quite consistent in terms of crunching up the ground and then switching out and transitioning down the other side. The only thing that worries me is when the game's not played on our turns, when and you'll see it next Friday night, Geelong will not allow us that amount of space. You can guarantee it. They will guard the corridor and they will keep numbers back. So it'll be very interesting to see what sort of game style Pikey plays next week, because if we dish up the same shit, we're going to get done again.
Yeah, Pikey's got a lot of homework to do there, and he's also got some imagination to come up with as well, because what you said is quite right. He won't allow us to go through the corridor, that'll be for sure, and he'll also make sure that he had the last man in between the goals and the play. Yep. So that's how they've always set up against us, and in recent times, and that's what other teams have imitated that have beaten us, and that's what Geelong will come up with again. So that we know what they'll dish up. So Pikey and his crew have got to sit down and work something out that at least can neutralise it to some degree, and at times work for us.
Yep, that's exactly right, and I'm sure, Macca, that we will be discussing that at length on Tuesday night. On Tuesday Night Live. It's 1:12, and I'm going to pull the pin because that's the best.
Sounds like a good idea.
I just want to make two little comments about.
Here he goes.
About Melbourne players. Clayton Oliver, very very good player. The first player I've seen for a long time kick the ball the wrong way deliberately.
Yeah. He's getting a Cockwomble nomination for that one. That was a really beautiful inside 50 for us.
And the last thing I want to say is for Jaden Hunt, and that 70-metre torp, that was just...
wasn't that a belter?
As much as it hurt us, I had to admire it. It was brilliant.
Somebody actually said that should be goal of the year because we don't see them anymore.
Has to be goal of the year.
Like all good torps, Macca, he did it off 3 steps.
Yeah, you don't...
Everyone that tries to boot a massive torp and they take these big run-ups, it's not about getting momentum, it's all about the contact, isn't it?
It is. You got to hit it sweet, and the ball has to be just not pointed down. It's got to be pointed slightly upwards, and you got to get it sweet on the boot.
Correct.
And God, it went high.
It was brilliant.
Now the Crows went down to Westies at Richmond Oval, and I don't really want to talk about it.
No, it did. And it was quite simply a very much development team. We had so many development players in there because Deer didn't play, Signorello didn't play, Beach didn't play. Of course, Gallucci was up in Darwin. So you're behind the 8 ball. We actually were playing quite well in the first couple of quarters, but then once those development players started to tire, we started to lose our structure a little bit, and that's when West
quarter, didn't they?
And they did go small in the last quarter, and that's where they got the run on. Yeah. There was some interesting umpiring as per normal. And I was really pleased to see, because it's actually sitting near the bench, listening to Cam Ellis-Yeoman and his instructions onto the field, but also the players on the field who were directing and helping out the development players. It was really, that was probably the loudest I've ever heard Seeds be. And Keith was really good at it as well. And Menzel in the first half, we actually played him as centre half forward, and that's where the impact we got out of him was very good. And then we went back to playing him in his normal role, and it was like, didn't work so well.
Very good. And that's
apparently
no more. That's it. We're done.
Baholke played well.
Talk about
he did play well.
Night. 1 minute 15. We're out
Done.
of here. Thanks, Macca. Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, guys. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at AFL Crowcast. If you're listening on iTunes, give us a rating and a comment. We'd love to hear it. Join us on Tuesday Night Live for Join us on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live. And until then, catch you all later. Thanks very much, guys.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, good night all. We're turning into pumpkins now.
Go away.